Hello, everybody. This is Lauren Cohen from Investing Across Borders, the powerful team that advises you how to invest, live, work, and play across borders. And we are super excited to be relaunching our podcast. This is our second episode. We were dark for almost a whole year because I had long COVID, as most of you know, and I couldn't speak. So it was definitely hard to interview guests. So I took a little hiatus, which ended up being a much longer hiatus. So I'm very excited to be back. And you can subscribe to the Investing Across Borders podcast on any of the podcast channels, Apple, Spotify, you name it, we're there. And we are super excited to have my friend, Councilman André Williams, with us today. I actually met André last Christmas time last year at the holiday party for the Canada-Florida Chamber, of which I am an active member, as is André. And we immediately connected, and I've been on a couple of shows with him, both for the Chamber as well as for the Miami Beach Chamber, and some other opportunities to collaborate together. And André is an amazing real estate attorney, Harvard educated, and bilingual. And he put bilingual, and before we started the podcast, I said, which bilingual do you mean? And he said Spanish, which is what I assumed, but you never know. And so for my client base, a lot of you obviously are bilingual French. And just to let you know that André is bilingual, speaks fluent Spanish, and can service all of our Latin clients as well as our Anglo clients. So André, why don't you give a little brief bio about yourself? Tell us where you come from. I know you recently got married, right? I think I saw you about 2 weeks before you were getting married.
But I have a beautiful Colombian bride, so thank you very much.
Wonderful. Well, that's what you call international.
Absolutely. I'm an international attorney.
There you go. Were you born in America?
Yeah, I was born. Yes, I was born in South Florida, born and raised, but I've just had the good fortune of being able to travel, Lauren. So traveled across the U.S. And certainly experienced other cultures, other ways of doing business. And that's why I'm so excited for the opportunity to work with Canadians.
Well, Canadians are definitely a unique breed. We have a different way of doing things. And I'm going to throw some things out there. This will be an interesting dialogue just to see if you agree.
Right.
What would you no, I'm going to actually throw it back to you. What would you say is the number one word that comes to mind when you think of Canadians?
Well, they're friendly people, very easy to get along with. But they are taskmasters. My experience has been they're very much want to be involved in the transaction, and every client is different. But they do appreciate a lot of hand-holding throughout the process.
I couldn't agree with you more, which is part of why we probably connect so well, because you hold their hand through the real estate transaction process, and I hold their hand through the structure and setup and investment, and then ultimately if they need a visa process. And it's not like we're just providing legal services, we're providing a lot more, because those clients do want and need that, and not everybody delivers that. As a matter of fact, I would say most do not. So we are the exceptions rather than the rules, right?
I agree with you, Lauren. And I provide a concierge service.
Yes.
And so that means I'm their attorney, their legal practitioner. But I certainly understand they're not from our country. They don't understand our culture and our way of doing business. So it's important for me to convey confidence to them in the process and to help them navigate the process. So they're not, they don't feel stressed. And they're comfortable, at the end of the day, because I want to make the client happy with the outcome and happy with my level of service too.
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting, because I think Canadians tend to think that doing business in America is the same as doing business in Canada, and it is not. Absolutely. And that is a rude awakening for many of us, and which is probably why they come to people like me or me, because I am Canadian, and so I speak Canadian, and I think my my kind of subtitle or title is The Canadian Whisperer. And
That's right.
you have, learned how to speak Canadian because you do so many transactions with Canadian clients, and so many Canadians invest in South Florida and should continue to invest. I think that right now we see a little bit of a tapering off of interest. Remember last year when we did that webinar for the Miami Beach Chamber, that about real estate being on fire, and the rates were super low then, right? Like a completely different market and marketplace than today, where the rates are super high, but the prices are also much lower. So the opportunities are still there. It's just a little bit of a different lens that we're looking at them with, right?
Absolutely. And I would still encourage Canadian investors to look seriously about investing in South Florida, or really any part of Florida, because you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. I know the real estate here is still cheaper than it is in Canada, by exponentially.
Yes.
So you're still going to get value. And real estate in Florida is always going to grow in value because of the so many forces working on real estate here. We have the foreign investors, Canadian investors, but we also have people from other parts of the country who are thinking about relocating their business to Florida, and bringing their employees, or just folks who can work remotely, who want to buy real estate here and live in the sunshine and do business. So it's still a very competitive market. So I hope the Canadian listeners to this podcast are not deterred by that. In fact, they should be more aggressive about buying real estate now.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I actually have a prospective client. I think you know that our signature program is how to immigrate through real estate. And we actually created an adjunct business called Strategic REI.
That's right.
Investing. And the reason we created that was because so many real estate investors wanted to use real estate as a path to immigration. But it's not an easy path, and you have to rethink your model. And so we developed this business to customize their business model to allow it to potentially lead to this visa. But the point being that I have this one prospective client who said, like, he did an about face. He was all in, and then he got really scared because I guess there was another rate hike, and he's like, oh, I don't know if now is the time because this might happen or that might happen. You know what? There is never going to be a perfect time. The perfect time is always going to be now. And if you wait until now has passed, you're going to miss that opportunity. And right now, more and more distressed properties are coming on the market, like on a daily basis, because people are over mortgaged and, or just overextended. And like so much has happened during COVID. And you're right, the number of people moving into Florida toward the end of COVID and continuing now is unprecedented because of the opportunity to work remotely, and people realizing, why do I need to stay in the Northeast and freeze my what off when I can be in Florida in the sun and the warmth all year round? And so we have definitely had a huge influx, and that is expected to continue. And the cost of living here is lower than in most other warm places, and the taxes are lower. And the number one reason people come here is because there's no, you have homestead, you have all kinds of opportunities to have tax exemptions and tax savings, and that's a big boom for the Floridian economy. And it definitely continues to draw people from all over the world, but also from our own backyards.
Absolutely. There's no state income tax, unlike New York or California.
Correct. Huge.
You might be paying 30 or 40% on top of your salary. But let me say to our Canadian listeners, real estate market in South Florida is very sound. In other parts of the country, this is post-pandemic. Real estate prices are diminishing or slowing. In Miami-Dade County, for example, last month, there was an increase in the overall property value from the previous year. So whereas property values are declining in other parts of the country, they're still rising here in South Florida. So an investment in real estate today is going to be valuable for you in the future because it's going to grow in value.
Yeah, agreed. But again, we never want to over leverage or undercapitalize. We always want to be well, flush, and make sure that those investments are not stretching us way too thin, and also access financing as it's available for you, especially for Canadians. People think it's not, but it is. So tell us about a faux pas that you made in terms of expanding your business or potentially investing outside of the country, or maybe working with investors coming into the country.
Well, and we all go through a learning process, but I can tell you, and this was probably a little bit earlier in my career, just learning about the nuances of every culture, and it's not a cookie cutter, it's not one size fits all, and you have to be able to navigate the various cultures, folks of different national origins, because as we talked about earlier, they all have a different way or different approach to doing business. I deal with a lot of New Yorkers. I mean, they certainly have, they're fast talkers, and they expect, everything to move at New York speed. But things in other parts of South Florida don't necessarily work that quickly. And so with Canadians and any other culture, I'd say my faux pas initially just navigating those relationships and their expectations about how business was supposed to be done. But I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm an expert at this now.
So tell me about becoming a councilman. When did that happen, and why?
So I grew up and thanks for asking. So I grew up in, I have my Harvard undergrad and Vanderbilt Law School, but I was blessed with some wonderful parents. I had very humble beginnings. I grew up in Miami Gardens, and for those of you all who don't know, we host Dolphin Stadium, which is located here. But it's a primarily African-American community, and I'd say middle class, working class. And so my mom is a retired public school teacher. My dad retired from the post office. So, we were middle class, not wealthy by any means. But this was a community that I grew up in that gave me so much. So after I came back from law school, started working in the legal world, I wanted to help my city grow and evolve. So I ran for office. So I was a city councilman for a number of years, and so part of the growth and renaissance of this community. So I was really proud of my work there.
Excellent. Well, that's it's very important to be able to serve and give back, and that was definitely a very important part of your career.
It was a labor of love, Lauren.
It's definitely not a labor of income, is it? Because you're working very hard for your.
You don't get rich in public service.
You do not get rich in public service. So I totally agree with you. What's one tip that you'd like to share with our listeners that are considering investing?
So do your research, and that means talking to people like Lauren to help you, navigate that process initially, because you're going to steer them in the right direction, because it's a brave new world for Canadians who are thinking about investing here. And you should speak to experts, someone who is a local expert in real estate. And certainly the immigration issues around that. So they should certainly speak to you first, but the next conversation should be with a real estate attorney, because you want to be represented by someone who's going to act on your behalf. Get that person involved early in the process, because they're going to be legal issues, and you want someone on board who's going to be able to help you navigate those legal issues even before you decide on a piece of property, a piece of real estate. I don't charge a consultation fee. And I'm happy, to take your calls and talk to potential clients about how they should navigate a potential issue. Now, obviously, if it involves a lot of legal work, that's a different story. But I love to educate folks about real estate here in South Florida, give them my insights, help them, navigate that real estate process.
As I'm talking to you, I'm thinking of a question. I don't know, this was not one of the questions that I shared with you in advance, so hopefully I'm not going to throw you off. Okay. I don't think I am.
All right, I'll give it a go.
There's something that's very different. I grew up in Ontario. I became a lawyer in Ontario, and then I moved here. And in Ontario, the real estate lawyer is the be all and end all. Okay. In the realtor is just representing the buyers and sellers through the purchase and sale of homes. That's it. In Florida, the realtor's role is so much broader. It's almost like they're engaging in the practice of law to some extent, because they're answering so many more questions. And on top of that, the other huge difference is the title company. And many, many title companies are not under the auspices of a law firm. And I would never feel comfortable with that, probably because I'm a lawyer. I'd rather have the protection of having that law firm with the title company to look after my interests, because at the end of the day, the title company can only fight so hard. And that lawyer, I mean, we went to law school for a reason, right? Paralegals can do a lot of what we do, but at the end of the day, there's something to be said for that legal advice, that legal mind, that legal training. So I'd love for you to comment on both of those things, if you could, about the realtor issue and then the title company.
Absolutely. And I like realtors. I have realtors who are my greatest referral partners. But I always caution my realtors, don't answer legal questions for your clients. And I think a lot of these realtors try to act as an attorney in fact in these transactions, and they give their clients bad legal advice, because
100%.
I've had instances where they bring me in after the fact and they followed a realtor's advice, and it's led them down a bad path, a treacherous path. So I always encourage realtors who I do business with to bring me on at the very beginning, and it's at no charge, because I'm only going to get paid when we close at closing. And so when you bring me on board, I'm engaged in the process from the beginning, so I can give you legal advice, before you sign that contract, so you have a little bit more comfort about moving forward.
Great, that's wonderful. And what about the title company issue and versus
Oh,
being?
and I absolutely agree with you. So I have a law firm and a title company, which are separate, but I'm the attorney of record for my title company. So when you retain my title company, you get the benefit of all my legal advice. And I agree with you. Absolutely. I would never, ever engage a title company that is not connected to an attorney to handle my closing, because there are going to be legal issues in the transaction, and you're going to be relying on, someone who does not have a law degree, who's not an attorney, ultimately giving you legal advice, or you're going to have to pay an additional fee to secure legal advice from an attorney outside of the transaction.
Correct. Yeah, that brings us actually to the next set of questions, because first of all, not all title companies are created equal, and more importantly, not all attorneys are created equal. And I think what's super important is that, some lawyers undercut other lawyers and do volume business. And I think that Andre and I have the same mentality. We're never looking for volume. We're always looking to be able to provide the quality, the top-notch service to our clients. So tell us, other than your concierge, which is obvious that separates you, what else separates you from other attorneys practicing in the real estate field?
So you mentioned my concierge service, but I'm what separates me is I'm also a real estate investor on a much smaller scale. So when a client hires me, they're not only getting my legal expertise, but oftentimes I am a strategic business partner in the transaction. In other words, if it's a quasi legal / business issue, I can help navigate them through that process, give them some advice based on my own real estate business background. And I think clients appreciate that at the end of the day.
I agree.
In the residential or commercial realm, because sometimes you need an objective set of eyes and ears to help navigate you through some more challenging issues, distressed properties. How is this going to affect me or my financial picture in the long run? So I can sometimes help them navigate through those issues.
So on that note, do you also handle, like, let's say that a client sold a business, would you handle the sale of that business as well?
Yeah, I could. If it was attached to real estate, and generally they are, yes, I could help them navigate that.
Okay, perfect. And how do people reach you, sir?
So my phone number, my office number is 305-626-5955.
Say that like a little more slowly, please.
Yeah. So it's 305-626-5955. That's my office phone number. Or they can reach me via email, André, that's ANDRE, @awilliamslaw.com.
And we will put all of this in the show notes, including how to access Andre on Instagram. It's Councilman Andre Williams, but we will put this stuff in the show notes for you. And I will wish everyone happy holidays. I don't know when this is going to be published, but Andre, I think I'll see you at the Canada Florida holiday
Yes,
events.
yes, you will. I will be there.
Awesome.
We can
Well,
share a toast.
we will definitely share a toast to all of our Canadians that need to get out of the snow and into the sun. And
Okay,
we are truly here to help you. We're very aligned in our service orientation,
yes,
aligned in our client service specialty, and aligned in our values. And it's a pleasure to work with you, Andre. And hopefully we'll have many more opportunities in 2023. And I'm looking forward to that. So thank you for your time today. It's been a true pleasure.
absolutely. And thanks for the invitation. I'm glad you're feeling much better.
Thank you. So am I.
All right, so I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Everybody, I just want to remind you that this is our podcast episode from Investing Across Borders, where we teach you how to invest, live, work, and play across borders. I'm Lauren Cohen, signing off for today with our guest, Andre Williams. Thank you again for joining us. Please do subscribe to our podcast on any of the podcast channels, and we are here to provide you with amazing information from wonderful guests like Andre about how to secure your future by investing across borders. Thank you again for joining us today. Take care.